Senator Marsha Blackburn, one of the lawmakers invited to dinner at Mar-a-Lago with the president last night, and she joins me now. Senator, a lot of questions to get to. I guess the first thing is, where do we stand on the budget negotiations? A lot of people wondering, will there be a standoff in the Senate, and will the Republicans cave?
Oh, not at all. Senator Graham, Chairman Graham, has delivered that budget outline. You have Chairman Collins, who is ready to get to work on that appropriation side. And you know, Kevin, we all realize that in order to cut the budget, you've got to be able to get a budget document and then get into those appropriations and rescind some of that bloated spending, which is what we are trying to do, whether it is through DOGE or through the appropriations. So we're working together, we're working with the House, and we look forward to having that first reconciliation bill soon. We look forward to getting us back to regular order on the budget and appropriations process.
Boy, that would really be something. It seems like it's been an awful long time, to be honest with you. Let me ask you, while we have you, Senator, about the temporary layoffs now at USAID. As you know, a judge has temporarily blocked the mass layoffs for the time being. As I mentioned in the open, though, there's some dueling going back and forth between jurists all over the country. I'm just wondering, the Democrats seem to be protesting the idea of even looking into the books, or sort of poo-pooing the idea, well, it's a penny here, it's a penny there. The budget's not a big deal compared to the federal budget. Is that a winning play for them, do you imagine?
Oh, it is not a winning play for them at all. The American people want their tax dollars to be used wisely to benefit the United States of America and our citizens. And as Secretary Rubio said, USAID is not a charity, and the American people do not support activities like transgender operations in Guatemala or teaching DEI in Serbia. What we need to do is make certain that USAID is held accountable, that it is not grants that are being given to friendly charities of bureaucrats over in the agency, and that the American people know their dollars are being well spent and are being used to support the United States of America.
A lot of people have said to me here in Washington, look, this is a problem that probably requires a scalpel and not a hammer, or not an explosive device. Can you see their concerns, Senator?
I know that there are some people that have concerns, but I also know that what they've done is to sit silently while the bureaucracy grew out of control, and while there was no transparency and very little accountability. So the American people are very much in support of what DOGE is doing, what President Trump is doing, and whether they're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, or an agnostic, what they are saying, it is time for these agencies to be held accountable for the dollars that they are spending.
Yeah, and if you have nothing to hide, simply open the books and let's see where the
That's
waste,
right.
fraud, and abuse is happening, and then you can cull that from the budget. I want to share for the folks at home just a bit of what the president has been doing. He's been obviously very active, and yet we have a pretty big week coming up, and I want to ask you specifically about Kash Patel. Does he make it over the finish line, in your opinion, as we look forward to what promises to be a very busy week here in Washington?
Yes, indeed. You're going to see every week a busy week. We do expect that Kash Patel will come out of Judiciary Committee. We are looking forward to confirming him and to confirming others. I fully believe that we're going to get every one of the president's cabinet nominees across the finish line very soon. We're on track to finish soon, and we're really a little bit ahead pace-wise than where we were with the Biden administration. And we're doing this at the same time as we're working on the budget, working on reconciliation, working to make certain that we're reducing the size, the scope, the reach of the federal government, and going through, whether it's the Pentagon or the Department of Education, making certain that the taxpayers know what is happening with their money, and also making certain that we're doing our part to send power and authority and money and responsibility back to the states and the people.
Yeah, to use a cleaner version of what Cardi B famously said, what are y'all doing with my money? the great senator from the wonderful state of Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. So great to have you. Thank you so much for spending
Good
time
to
with
be
us.
with you. Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend, my friend. We appreciate you.